Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's Monday night. And so, of course, it is another installment of Insights with Alicia. So thrilled that you are all here. Welcome, Cato. Lovely to see you. And one more tech thingy, just our buttons. So, yeah, it was great. Last week was 2 months that I have been doing this event. And so I'm just thrilled that it continues. And I just am still amazed how much I absolutely love doing this and how far, I talked a little bit about this last week about, how far we can come in such a short distance of something that absolutely terrified us to something that we love doing. And I love being able to connect with you guys. So, okay. For those of you that don't know, I am Alicia Sweezer, owner of Who Knew Healing. And the reason we get together on Monday nights is because I had the awareness to start sharing some of the things that I use myself or that I teach my friends, or most importantly, that I teach my clients. And so I wanted to start sharing those with more people. And for those of you who don't know, I'm an intuitive life coach, animal consultant, psychic medium, and intuitive mentor. And I absolutely love, love, love being able to help people and animals. As always, thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully you got your favorite drink tonight. I'm just drinking water, nothing fancy. I actually need to buy water so that I can make tea and that sort of stuff. Because if any of you who have lived in Phoenix know, you don't really drink the water here. It doesn't taste that good. Certain parts of the valley are okay, but other parts, not so much. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We are going to talk about active listening. What is that? Right? It's a skill that some people inherently have. And if you don't, it's definitely a skill that can be learned. It's a skill that will change every relationship in your life. It is a skill that will change every interaction you have with people or any other life form that you speak to. As Pip agrees, if you can hear him. Because when you work with animals, you definitely have to be an active listener. You cannot be in your head thinking and that sort of thing, particularly when I'm working with my clients, because it's a three-way conversation, right? So I have the human and I have the animal. And so there's this three-way conversation that goes on. So if I'm not actively listening, one, I'm not able to provide accurate information and things go sideways. So as I was saying, this skill goes hand in hand with what we spoke about last week. For those of you who weren't here last week or haven't watched the video, we spoke about listening versus giving solutions. Highly recommend it. It's a really, really, really helpful tool. And just like last week where I spoke about listening, in those instances, sometimes we believe that listening isn't enough. It is. Most of the time, that is all anyone wants. We live in a world that is based on earning and proving and striving, most of the time for scraps of someone's attention, scraps of someone's approval, scraps of just someone seeing us and hearing us. And that's why listening is so, so, so important. So much of what I encounter is people just wanting to truly be heard. And I love that a few minutes into listening to them, they start to get uncomfortable. Like they start to fidget, they start looking around. It's just the most adorable, cute thing. And I run into this, I'm not even talking about like just with my clients. I run into this with people like at meetups. I'll be at a meetup and I'll be listening to someone and I hear a lot, like they'll stop a few minutes in and they'll be like, wow, they're just so surprised. They're like, you're really listening to me. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm interested in what they have to say. Like I'm paying attention, but it's so uncommon to them. It's so bizarre. And one, that makes me sad for the world, right? Let's see if we can change that. And two, it starts with just one person, just one time of listening. And in that moment, of where they realize someone is directly, actively paying attention and listening to them, their life changes right there because they're experiencing something they didn't think was possible or that they had no idea was even possible. Now they want more of it, right? Which is the greatest thing. And hopefully they take the next step and learn to be active listeners themselves, because that will just grow their relationships. And I used to run a group. When did I do it? Last year? Yeah, it was last year. I used to have this free support group sort of thing that I would do by Zoom. And when people would start to share, this exact thing would start happening. The rule was one speaker at a time, and they would have the floor until they feel complete. And I would facilitate them if they chose that. Within 2 minutes, like I said, people are fidgeting, and they would start to say things like they're talking too much. They would start to say things like they're sharing too much. They would be worried or self-conscious that no one would want to listen to them, and that what they said or what they had to say wasn't important. And they would just start to say all these other negative things about themselves. And it was so fascinating to me, because all of it was untrue. We were all there to be present for each other, to aid someone in their healing. Because sometimes and I talked a bit about this in one of my coaching chats, or I think 2 of them, I mentioned it, where I talked about just having someone witness us is massively healing and transformative. The example I gave was, it was like the second coaching chat that I was doing, and I was talking about my head injuries. And I was fine doing, I was practicing the recording and all of that kind of stuff, and I was fine doing it. But then when I recorded it for someone to review, I got super emotional. Like, it brought up so many different things because I knew someone else was going to be listening. It was so fascinating to me, because I was like, wow, I've healed a lot of this stuff, but as you've heard me say, I don't spend a lot of time talking about it. But just that knowing someone was going to witness it healed things that were still stuck in there. And so that's what actively listening, being present for someone, can really, really do. It changes the energy. It gets things that are stuck in our body up and out, with not having to do anything but be present. And, like I was saying, in this group, we all wanted to hear what the speaker had to say, and they weren't used to it. They weren't used to having someone be dedicated and present with them, let alone multiple people. And it's this place of, when someone's giving us their undivided attention, the spotlight is on you. And for a lot of people, that's really uncomfortable. And here's the other side of it that we don't even always realize what's happening, is when we're the speaker, right? When we're talking and someone else is actively listening to us, paying attention, being present, we also get to practice receiving, right? Because those people are caring about us in that moment, and we get to practice receiving that, which is also can be really uncomfortable and vulnerable for people, and can be very scary. I'm not going to lie. We talk a lot about the fear of receiving. And I was talking to someone earlier today, and we were speaking about, feeling loved. And if someone isn't open to receiving love, if someone isn't emotionally available, you can heap tons of love on them, and they're never going to feel it, because that door opens from the inside. It's a choice to receive from people. And so someone could be showering you with unconditional love over and over and over, and that person may never feel it. And that doesn't have anything to do with the person who's loving them, which sometimes then they get in their head and they start to think, oh, I'm not doing it right, or, I'm not doing it enough, which, ties into the video and blog that I did where I talked about, how do you feel loved? And because that can really help you with your receiving, practice receiving from people. So it's this place of, when someone's caring about us and just listening, we get to practice receiving that. So it's sort of a double exercise, right? Like, not only are you being in the spotlight and talking about yourself and sharing about yourself, which can be new and sometimes uncomfortable, but you're also receiving someone else caring about you and being present. So it's a very, very healing, super powerful growth tool. Okay. And we talk about, the simple, and I put that in quotes, act of active listening. But the truth is that active listening changes the world. It's a superpower. And it's a form of unconditional love. And I get it. Like I've been talking about here, when someone is truly actively listening to us without judgment, it can be extremely vulnerable. And it's vulnerable because it isn't common for us. It isn't the norm. So let's change that. And we all know this world runs on talking and talking and talking. Is talking important? Absolutely. And just as important is listening, because that's two sides of the conversation, right? We've all been in those places where someone is unconsciously talking. It's for people that we're going to, for lack of a better word, people who talk on and on and on, sort of unconsciously, it's a form of clinging. And they don't even know that it's a form of clinging, because they may have grown up in a really quiet household, or they may have grown up in a household where there wasn't a lot of interaction, a lot of attention, that sort of thing. And so, that quiet can be really unsettling. So some people will just talk to fill the silence. And what it really is, just a form of clinging. We all cling in different ways. And so it's just something to pay attention to, because like I was saying, this world runs on talking and talking and talking, and there's conscious conversation, right? Which one of my passions is conscious communication, because that leads to connection. And then there's these other times that sometimes it's just clinging. I had this friend who used to think it was weird, AKA uncomfortable for him, but made him feel super special at the same time, that I really listened when he spoke. And I remembered everything that he told me. He had never experienced that before. That act alone changed his life. So if you ever doubt that just showing up and listening is enough, remember that story. Okay, so welcome. We had some new people pop in, so welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions or feedback, pop them in the chat there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this. So a lot of the time when we think we have to be earning, and I touched on this a little bit last week as well. So a lot of time when we think we have to be earning, inputting, or doing something, is because we have an underlying belief that we ourselves are not enough, that just us as we perfectly are isn't enough, that simply showing up and caring by active listening isn't enough. This is all a lie. All a lie. Big, big, big lie. Don't believe it. It's so dry in Arizona. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm not talking about one-sided relationships, right? Where there isn't any mutuality. That's not what we're talking about here. We definitely do not want that. And there are going to be times in relationships where someone is going through something and they just need someone to be there with them, not to do, but to be. And I get it. I'm a doer. It is one of my life practices, is to not be a human doing, but to be a human being. And when we talk about being, or just be, right, we're talking about being in the energy, being present, being all of ourselves, not doing by keeping ourselves busy and unconscious and that sort of thing. And it's enough to just be present with someone and be with them. And you'll hear the language sometimes, we call it holding space also. So, and holding space can be used in many forms. But in these kind of instances, like a lot of times I will use it with the people in my life, or even my clients, where they can't get to the place that they want to yet. Like they know their growth or their shift or their mindset change or anything like that, their healing is possible, but this is where they are today, which is perfect. You can't be where you're not. There's no timeline, right, on this journey. And so what I get to do, what I get the privilege and honor of, is holding that space, of holding that belief for them, being their champion. Like that's why I love so much of what I get to do, because I get to be that person for these other people in my life and my clients who are like, I want to make these shifts. One, I get to guide them and help them along the way, but also I get to hold that space for them and show them what's truly, truly possible. And it is the best thing in the whole world. Okay, so what does active listening look like? It looks like making a conscious decision to make this other person a priority at this moment. I'm talking emotionally, mentally, physically, energetically. It's a conscious decision to be right here, right now. It looks like paying attention when someone is speaking. Now, I get that that may sound or seem the same as a conscious decision to make this person a priority, but believe me, they're different energies, they're different vibrations. So what the paying attention looks like is you're not on your phone, you're not watching TV, you're not doing anything else that is a distraction. Like you're right here with the person, right there with them. It also looks like in your head, you're not thinking about what you're going to say next. And I get that that's such a default for people because we come from this place of wanting to really show up, right? Of wanting to contribute. So much of what we talked about last week of, you know, believing we have to earn our place in a friendship, whereas just being a friend is enough. We don't have to teach. We don't have to facilitate. We don't have to have words of wisdom. Friendship comes from that heart connection, that energetic connection. And so if you're in your head thinking about what you're going to say in response to what they've just said to you, you're not active listening, because when you're thinking, you're not listening. When you're thinking like that, you're not listening. You have started to do and not be, and they'll notice. And it's so interesting because there's this practice and this growth opportunity that comes in these moments, because if you are sharing something with someone and you're being vulnerable, right? You're in your feelings and you could be talking about something that's really scary for you. And the other person, there's an energy change that happens and you can tell that they're not actively listening anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like it happens. We all zone out at certain periods, right? Like active listening isn't the goal to be perfect at it. It's to be present as much as humanly possible, to care about that person in front of you. And when it's your time that you want to get that from someone, that someone shows up and does it for you also. So, but there's this, it's just this default of where we think, oh no, I've got to say something back. I've got to contribute in here. And the truth is you are contributing just by listening. It is such a massive life-changing tool. So in those moments, as I was saying, like when I could right, because I'm psychic and super sensitive energy, I can tell the second somebody isn't paying attention anymore. Now, before I used to get upset about that, like inside, and I would tell myself all kinds of stories about that, like, oh, kind of what the stuff I talked about at the beginning of the people in my group, right? Like, oh, they must not want to hear what I'm saying, or oh, I must have said something that upset them, right? Because that's always me with my, former people pleasing. That always kicks in. Or I make it mean that they're judging me, or that I'm boring, or just all kinds of crazy stories in there. But now, one, because I've grown and healed so much myself, I know that it's not about me. And in those moments, I can choose to speak up and be like, hey, you know what? Are you running out of capacity? Is this not a match for you subject wise? Because a lot of times, sometimes we think we can, hold space for someone and talk about and listen to a subject. And then sometimes it might be triggering for us, but we didn't know that until it happens. So once again, it's not this place where you just stay in it and you suffer, either one of you. So as the person who's speaking, you get the opportunity to lean in, right? Because you just so much communication is about connection. Like it's the best thing. And you lean in and be like, hey, what's happening? What's going on here? And they may simply be like, oh, nothing, I had a weird leg pain. Like all kinds of random stuff can happen in those moments. And they're like, no, I'm totally right back here with you. And here's the thing. We will definitely make a bigger deal out of something if it is with someone we are romantically interested in. It just happens. You've heard me talk a little bit about this before in some of the other videos, but I guarantee you, if you are talking to your guy or you're talking to your girl and they blip out for a second, oh, we make it mean all kinds of stuff just because of the attachment. You've heard me tell the stories of like, if I text my friend and she doesn't text me back, I don't even think anything of it. But if I text a guy that I like and he doesn't text me back, right, I've got to catch that runaway train in there that's going to start to tell me stories. And that's the action is absolutely no different. It's the story in here. It's what we make it mean. So that behavior and those thoughts, they can pop up in these kind of things, these kind of active listening situations as well, anytime we're sharing about ourselves. So just pay attention to the stories that you tell yourself. The other part, another way of active listening is to be, as what I was just talking about, paying attention to your own capacity. If you are starting to get tired, or if you're running out of energy, or if you're being triggered by something this person is talking about, then speak up and tell the person. Now, this is one of the things I teach people too. They're not wrong for what they were talking about. A lot of times if someone gets tired or they get triggered, they want to attack back and they want to make that person wrong for what they're doing. So I don't recommend that you do that, because your conversation is going to go sideways. One, pay attention to that you're the one triggered or tired or cranky or whatever. That's all about you. That's your stuff. And that's awesome and amazing that you're having that awareness that that's about you. And it's this place to connect with the other person, to let them know what's going on, because I guarantee they've already noticed that you've started to wander. So if you say to them, hey, you know what you're saying to me is really important and I want to be there for you, and I'm starting to get a little tired. I didn't realize that, today at work really wore me out. Or, sometimes a conversation starts like before dinner time, right? So you're both starting to get a little hungry. And so you say, this is really important. I really want to be present and I'm starting to get really hungry. Can we eat and then pick up the conversation after dinner? And then of course the follow through is really important. Like, make sure you circle back to the conversation. It's that follow through that really, really builds intimacy and connection. So, because like I said, people will notice when you start to wander. Active listening is really about learning about the other person, leaning in and realizing that they need this in that moment. So everybody take a big deep breath, right? I know I get all passionate about my communication and my listening, and just because I know how much this can transform. Like, I know it looks like a little thing. I guarantee you it is not. It is not. It is not. It is not. Active listening provides emotional safety. And I know you've heard me say with my inner circle, emotionally safe is the one core thing that I have in my inner circle. And so people that can actively listen and be present and see and hear me are the people who are in my inner circle. And if you have no idea what that means, it can be taught. Like, I promise you, this is not, none of this that I'm talking about here today is anything that you cannot learn. And it is something that I teach lots of people. And if I'm not a match for you, I guarantee you there are other people that can teach you these skills. So take that big deep breath. And I want you to think back about a time when someone showed up for you and was really there for you in that space that you needed them to be. It could have been that you had something traumatic happen. It could have been there was a death in the family, possibly someone close to you. And because we don't often think of these things, it could have been a really happy time in your life. Because there's a lot of times that we have really happy things that happen to us. Like we've manifested this thing we've been working for, or we have achieved this goal that we wanted to have. And having someone actively listen to us talk about that is just as important as someone talking to us or being present and actively listening in a time of grief. Because we've all had those experiences where we wanted to talk about a success and the people around us tried to tear us down, right? They try to burn out your candle. They try to make you dim your light. That doesn't feel so good either. So just as important for those emotionally, traumatic experiences, active listening is just as important when we have something to celebrate. And we don't often think about that part. So remember how it felt in your body and how you felt loved in that moment when that person showed up for you. And think about how that changed your life in that simple but powerful moment. That is where the healing occurs. That is where growth occurs. That is where your life changes. And I am constantly saying it's in these detailed moments that the foundational changes are made. It isn't always in these big sweeping moments. I get it. I am one that likes to have massive steps and leap, tall buildings and all of that good stuff because I want to get there faster. For myself, I'm very impatient with myself. And so sometimes these smaller steps don't feel like you're making any progress. And that's why it's really helpful to have, a coach or friends that are able to reflect back to you the progress that you have made. And even for myself, you guys have heard me talk about, I call it a win journal, because I don't track the little things. Like I literally don't see them. My measuring sticks, I'm in the process of recalibrating them. And so things that are small, quote unquote, not small, I have to write down at the end of every day because otherwise I don't see them. But when I look back over that stuff over time, I can really see the progress that I've made. I can see the changes that have occurred for myself, because it is these foundational steps that create the change for the rest of your life. It is these mindset switches. It is these foundational skills of listening, or even like last week, I talked about listening versus, offering solutions and what that means in your relationships. Like that changes everything. And it's an opportunity for us to connect so intimately and to have that type of connection that everybody is desperate for, especially in today's world, that we want someone who's right there with us, really listening. And the other cool thing about active listening is it provides you the opportunity to respond versus react. I'll probably do a video specifically on, or write a blog about responding versus reacting. It's sort of in this same vein that we've been talking about last week and this week. And there's a very, very big difference between responding and reacting. If you're actively listening to someone, you're present, you're listening, you're paying attention, you're conscious, you got all of your senses all involved here. So you're able to respond versus being triggered and react, and have then the conversation go in a way that you don't want it to. And then your relationship is impacted. And then sometimes we got to circle back and clean it up. That's never fun. I don't enjoy it. Like I am such a let's be proactive person. Like if we can catch it in the front, so much better than having to circle back and clean something up. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We all have places where we circle back and clean things up. And that act alone, the circling back and cleaning something up, where it's like, hey, I realized I was totally, irritated and attacking, and I judged you, and that has nothing to do with you. Like when we circle back and own our part in something, that creates lasting relationships as well, and does wonders for ourselves. So that is, gosh, it's already 7:30. Some of this stuff just goes by so fast. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not going to have enough to fill the time. And then at the end, I'm trying to fit it all in and talk faster, which is kind of, you believe, not even possible with as fast as I already talk, to fit it into our half hour. So if you want to strengthen your ability to actively listen, or any of the other stuff I talked about tonight, book a session or join my brand new premier Change Your Life coaching program. There are still spots available. I'm super excited for this program. It's for 3 months or 6 months. It is very affordable, and there are only 20 spots total in this group. So check it out on my website and book in for your free discovery call. That is all for this evening. Like I said, I can't believe it went by so fast. I just love connecting with all of you. I had a great time. Of course, join me again next Monday. And as usual, everything I'm about to talk about, all of the links are in the event info. So if you really liked this, the video will be uploaded to my YouTube channel under Alicia Sweezer this evening. That link is in the event listing. So if you liked it, or you think someone else could benefit from it, please share it with them. Because the more that we can teach people about these things, the better the world gets to be. And everybody will get happy. Like their relationships just change. Also, things like this, if you like it, sign up for my blog, because I write about this kind of stuff. As usual, link in the event listing. And thank you so much to everyone who has donated to my Cosmic Tip Jar. It allows me to create more free things like this that I can give to people. Anyone that feels led to do so, link is in the event. And like I said before, if anything I talked about tonight makes you want to learn more, reach out, book a session, or schedule your free discovery call for the coaching program, and let's see what we can create together. Thank you so much for joining me. I just like, I know I keep saying it, but I'm just so amazed because when I started this, I was absolutely terrified. In a very short time, I absolutely love being able to do this. And everyone who shows up and watches the replays or tell their friends about it is really such a gift to me, because all of this allows me to fulfill my life's path, and you guys showing up allow me to do that, and you get to be a part of it. So thank you so much. I will see you all next Monday. All right, everyone have a good night. Thanks.